What if I told you that a simple 1-cent coin, a tiny copper piece that most people would ignore if it fell to the ground, could actually hold the potential to change lives forever, because the 1958 D-Wheat penny from the United States, a coin with a face value of just 1 cent, is considered in the world of collectors, auction houses, and rare coin enthusiasts as one of the most legendary pieces in history, with stories and reports surrounding its value that skyrocket beyond imagination, even reaching into the realm of $375 million. And this jaw-dropping number isn't just based on simple speculation, but is tied to the fascinating errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and historical circumstances that have made this penny not only rare, but virtually priceless to certain collectors. And when we dive into the details of why this coin is seen as so extraordinary, we uncover a mix of history, mystery, economics, and passion that all contribute to its staggering value. So let's break it down in a way that keeps you hooked, because coins like the 1958 D-Wheat penny might look ordinary to the average person, but their background tells us otherwise, starting with the fact that 1958 was the very last year the U.S. Mint produced the wheat penny design, a design that had been in circulation since 1909, when it was first introduced to honor Abraham Lincoln's centennial birthday. And by 1959, the reverse design was switched to the Lincoln Memorial, making the 1958 series historically important, especially for collectors who value last-of-their-kind issues. But what makes the Denver Mint strike so incredible is not just their place in history, but the fact that extremely rare mint errors exist from that year that have become almost mythical, with the most famous being the 1958 double die penny where the obverse lettering, particularly in the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," shows dramatic doubling, and only a few known examples of these double die wheat pennies from 1958 have ever surfaced, making them among the rarest Lincoln cents ever struck. And this extreme scarcity fuels the belief that the 1958 D could hold unique varieties or even undiscovered mint errors that, if authenticated, would blow away current records. And when we talk about value, it's not just about the coin being old, because millions of old pennies exist, but rather about being both old and rare with the added impact of historical mistakes. And when collectors hear error coin, their excitement skyrockets, because these coins are essentially accidents of history, pieces that were never meant to exist but somehow slipped through quality control at the U.S. Mint and survived decades in circulation or tucked away in collections until rediscovery. And imagine finding a coin with doubling so extreme that the letters appear as if they were printed twice, or perhaps a coin struck on the wrong planchet, like a penny struck on a dime blank, which creates a coin that is thinner, lighter, and smaller than normal, or even a coin struck off-center with part of the design missing entirely. And in 1958 D pennies, possibilities like repunched mint marks, die breaks known as cods, or coins struck through grease, which cause missing details, all add layers of collectible intrigue. But beyond the technicalities, the psychology of collecting plays a massive role, because once a coin is known to be incredibly rare, its value multiplies with every new auction, since high-end collectors compete fiercely to own what others cannot. And in numismatics, rarity always drives value, especially when combined with historical significance, and the 1958 D fits that mold perfectly, with its place as the end of the wheat penny era and potential for spectacular errors that make it worth unimaginable sums. And when stories circulate about coins fetching hundreds of thousands or even millions at auction, it draws in the curiosity of the public, and people start searching their pocket change, hoping to strike it rich. And it's this mass fascination that elevates certain coins into legends, and legends attract big money as wealthy collectors, museums, and private investors look to secure a piece of history, often paying beyond rational limits just to claim bragging rights as the owner of one of the rarest coins ever minted. And if you think about it, a coin that once bought a piece of candy or contributed to a child's piggy bank could today equal the value of a luxury yacht, a mansion, or even an entire company, and this dramatic transformation in worth is what makes the 1958 penny so exciting to talk about, because its potential for value keeps growing as more people learn about it, demand increases, and the few available examples become even scarcer. And remember, scarcity is the golden rule in collectibles. The fewer there are, the more people will pay. And when you combine scarcity with the unique status of being a final year wheat penny, plus the rumors and confirmations of dramatic errors, you get the perfect recipe for astronomical value, which explains why this coin is linked with numbers like $375 million in numismatic circles, because some believe that if the right error coin were discovered in pristine condition and placed in a competitive auction where billionaires and high-end investors are bidding, the price could explode far beyond imagination. And this isn't fantasy, because history has already shown us examples where coins and collectibles achieve staggering results, such as the 1933 Double Eagle gold coin selling for over $18 million, or rare stamps and baseball cards hitting prices that nobody would have believed a decade earlier. So why not a penny, especially one tied to such an iconic design, an iconic president, and an iconic era? And when you think about how many 1958 pennies are still sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, and collections, the dream of finding one of these mega-valuable coins becomes even more compelling, making treasure hunting in your change feel like a real possibility. And this is what keeps the excitement alive in the coin community, because every time a new era discovery is confirmed, it renews hope that something even greater is still out there, waiting to be found. And in the case of the 1958 wheat penny, it's entirely possible that a coin worth hundreds of millions could be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for the right person to recognize it. And this creates a cycle where stories of extreme value fuel more searching leads to more discoveries, and discoveries fuel even higher values, until the coin transforms from a humble cent into a piece of living history that holds its place as a financial legend. So the next time you see a wheat penny, especially from 1958 with a Denver Mint mark, remember that what looks ordinary could secretly be extraordinary. What looks like pocket change could actually be life-changing, and what once represented a single cent of value could now represent generational wealth. And as we wrap up this journey through the incredible world of the 1958 wheat penny and its mythical $375 million value, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and keep searching your change, because your next great discovery might just be waiting in the palm of your hand. Next, 1951 wheat penny. Today, we are diving deep into the incredible tale of the 1951 wheat penny, a coin minted in San Francisco that has become a legendary piece in numismatic history with a jaw-dropping estimated worth of $10 million, making it one of the most unbelievable treasures in American currency history. And as you hear this, you might think to yourself, how could a simple 1-cent coin that was produced in huge numbers during the early 1950s ever reach a price tag that rivals fine art masterpieces or luxurious estates? But the truth is that every coin tells a story, and the 1951 wheat penny is no exception, because it is not just a piece of copper, it is a window into American history, economic change, minting technology, and the unpredictable world of rare coin collecting, where errors, varieties, and demand collide to create astronomical values. Now let's take a step back to understand why this coin has captured so much attention, because the wheat penny series itself, first minted in 1909 as a celebration of Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, was groundbreaking, being the first U.S. coin to feature a real person's portrait, and designed by Victor David Brenner. Its iconic wheat stalks on the reverse symbolize prosperity and hard work that define the American spirit, and by 1951 the San Francisco Mint had struck millions of these pennies, yet certain rare survivors emerged with minting quirks and flawless preservation that turned them into numismatic marvels, and among them the 1951 wheat Penny stands tall because while most examples are worth only a few cents in circulated condition, a select few with perfect striking conditions, error anomalies, doubled dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, or uncirculated status have skyrocketed in value, and this particular $10 million example has become famous for combining rarity, historical context, and condition into one perfect storm. Collectors prize coins not only for their metal, but also for the stories they tell, and the 1951 Sweet Penny tells a story of post-war America, a time when families were rebuilding lives, the economy was shifting, and small change, like this penny, circulated daily in grocery stores, schools, and gas stations, yet little did anyone know that tucked away in circulation was a piece that would one day be valued like a mansion on the coast or a luxury yacht in the Mediterranean, and experts have revealed that one of the main reasons this coin is so valuable is its pristine state, as it somehow survived decades without ever being worn down and remained in gem mint condition with a sharp strike, full red luster, and no contact marks, a miracle for a coin made of relatively soft copper, and beyond condition. Specialists believe the specific die pair used in its creation produced subtle doubling that gave its details an unmatched sharpness, setting it apart from ordinary issues, making it both an error and a near-perfect specimen at the same time. And when such a coin appears at major auctions, the bidding war becomes fierce, as wealthy collectors, museums, and investors compete to own a tangible piece of history, which drives the price higher than anyone could imagine, because unlike mass-produced items, each rare coin is truly one of a kind, and once it is locked away in a private collection, it may not resurface for decades, further fueling its mythical status in the community. Stories spread of individuals who once overlooked 1951's pennies, tossing them into jars or vending machines, unaware that they were literally holding a multi-million-dollar fortune in their hands, which adds another layer of fascination to its story. And imagine the thrill of finding such a coin in a roll hunt or in Grandpa's old jar of change. It's the dream that fuels countless treasure hunters, metal detector enthusiasts, and coin roll searchers across the country, because the possibility, no matter how slim, always exists that someone out there could stumble upon this exact legendary piece, or one nearly as valuable. And when we think about how tiny details, like a misaligned die or repunched mint mark, could turn an ordinary cent into a life-changing fortune, it makes you realize just how much mystery still exists in the hobby of numismatics, which is why millions of collectors are drawn into the chase every year, as they carefully examine their coins under magnification, hoping to spot that one detail that transforms copper into gold. And what's equally fascinating is the way value can snowball over time, because a coin like this might have been worth only a few $100s decades ago, but as awareness grew, as more collectors entered the market, and as the top specimens disappeared into strong hands, the demand surged, and suddenly what was once seen as modestly valuable became a true financial giant worth millions today. And the 1951 Sweet Penny has now cemented itself not only as a piece of monetary history, but as a cultural artifact, a reminder of how even the smallest objects can carry immense meaning and extraordinary worth in human society. And experts predict its value will only rise as fewer coins remain available and more investors recognize coins as tangible assets, much like art, rare stamps, or gemstones. And beyond the numismatic world, the story of this coin continues to inspire everyday people, teaching them that sometimes fortune can be hiding in the most unlikely of places, even in your pocket, and that no matter how common an item seems, it could hold secrets waiting to be discovered. So next time you see a wheat penny, don't dismiss it as just another old cent, because history has proven time and time again that within those small copper discs are treasures that can change lives and make headlines worldwide. And that is the power of coins like the 1951 Sweet Penny, worth an unbelievable $10 million, a testament to rarity, history, and human fascination with collecting. And if you enjoyed this incredible story and want to hear more about coins that can make you rich, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more amazing discoveries. Next, 1954 Wheat Penny. Today we are going to explore one of the most astonishing and unbelievable stories in the history of coin collecting. A story that could change the way you look at everyday change forever. And the star of this discussion is the 1954 Wheat Penny. A coin that might look like just an ordinary 1-cent piece from mid-20th century America, but in reality has been known to sell for up to $10 million because of its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and unique features that set it apart from the millions of other wheat pennies struck in that year. And as we go through this journey together, I'll be explaining why this specific penny is so valuable, how these minting errors happened, what collectors look for, and why a single coin can reach such an astronomical price that it surpasses luxury cars, mansions, and even rare art pieces in terms of worth. So if you're curious about how a coin that was worth just 1 cent at the time of its production can climb to $10 million today, then buckle up, because this is going to be one of the most captivating stories you will hear. Now, to start with some background, the wheat penny was minted from 1909 to 1958, and it carried the iconic wheat ears on the reverse side, which made it distinctive and beloved among collectors. The 1954 wheat penny was struck at the San Francisco Mint, and while millions were produced, most of them circulated without any issues. But there are always a few rare exceptions where mistakes at the mint result in unusual coins that are immediately prized by collectors, and the 1954 has some of the most intriguing examples of these minting errors. For instance, double die obverse errors, where the date or lettering on the front of the coin appears doubled because of a misalignment during the die creation process. And if you find a 1954 with a noticeable double die on the date, the word Liberty, or the phrase "In God We Trust," you may be holding on to something far more valuable than pocket change. Then there are repunched mint marks, a common error in that era where the S mint mark for San Francisco was punched more than once in slightly different locations, leaving a shadow or layered appearance. And collectors absolutely go crazy over clear examples of these errors. Another possibility comes from off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not perfectly aligned with the dies during striking, so part of the design is missing or shifted to one side, creating a dramatic look. The more off-center but still showing the date and mint mark, the higher the value. Then you have clipped planchet errors, where a small portion of the metal blank was cut off before striking, resulting in a coin with a crescent-shaped missing edge. These two can add substantial value to a 1954 wheat penny. But what truly sends certain examples into the multi-million-dollar range is when these errors occur together in one coin. Imagine a 1954 penny that not only has a double die obverse, but also shows a repunched mint mark and an off-center strike, while still being in pristine uncirculated condition. The rarity of such a coin makes it a true once-in-a-lifetime find, and wealthy collectors are willing to pay whatever it takes to add it to their collections. So much so that at auctions we have seen bidding wars escalate rapidly, with millionaires and even institutional investors eager to secure these unique pieces of American history. Now, beyond the errors, there are also other factors that make the 1954 penny so desirable. One of them is condition, because coins graded as mint state with sharp detail, original luster, and no signs of wear are exponentially more valuable than those that circulated in everyday transactions. A 1954 in average condition might only fetch a few cents or maybe a couple of dollars, but one preserved in a perfect state with errors can be worth millions. And another factor is provenance, meaning the coin's ownership history, as certain coins that were once part of famous collections or discovered in noteworthy hoards often carry added prestige and value. Another intriguing aspect is that coin errors are often unpredictable, which adds to their mystique. You never know when a simple mistake at the mint decades ago can turn into a life-changing discovery today. Collectors hunt for these coins in rolls, bags, and old collections passed down through families. And many people are shocked when they realize that a coin they have been keeping in a jar or tucked away in a drawer is actually a piece worth millions. The 1954 penny is also symbolic of a period in American history, a time when coins were made with care but also without the high-tech quality controls we have today, which means mistakes happen more frequently, and some of those mistakes are now treasures. People often ask, why would anyone pay $10 million for a penny? And the answer lies in the intersection of rarity, demand, and the cultural importance of coins as artifacts of history. Serious collectors know that money is not just about face value, but about the stories behind the coins. And the 1954 sweet penny tells a story of error, rarity, and the enduring appeal of coin collecting. Some examples of 1954 pennies with unique errors have been documented in auction records where bidders drove up the prices because they recognized the exceptional combination of mistakes and condition. And while not every 1954 penny will reach the $10 million mark, the existence of such a sale proves that even a small coin can rival the world's most valuable collectibles. Think about it. A coin that was once handed over for candy or tucked into a piggy bank can now buy luxury yachts, mansions, or become a centerpiece in a museum collection. And this is why collectors and treasure hunters are constantly searching through their coins. Because stories like the 1954 sweet penny remind us that incredible value can hide in plain sight. When you hold such a coin, you are holding not just metal but a piece of art, history, and luck all rolled into one. It represents the meticulous yet imperfect process of minting, the passage of time, and the human fascination with rarity, and that is why wealthy collectors line up to pay astronomical sums for them. The 1954 sweet penny is a perfect example of how mistakes can create masterpieces, how imperfections can become treasures, and how something so ordinary can transform into something extraordinary. So the next time you come across an old wheat penny from the 1950s, don't just pass it by. Check it carefully, look at the mint mark, examine the date, study the details under magnification, because you never know when you might be staring at a life-changing coin. The journey of the 1954 sweet penny from a humble cent to a $10 million masterpiece is proof that treasure hunting is not only possible, but happening every day. Collectors around the world dream of making such a discovery, and it fuels the passion and excitement in this hobby. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe one day you'll be the lucky one holding a 1954 sweet penny with the right combination of errors and pristine condition that could change your life forever. Next, 1958 wheat penny. Today we dive deep into one of the most astonishing stories in the world of coin collecting and numismatics. A journey that will capture your attention from the very start, because we are going to talk about the unbelievable tale of the 1958 wheat penny, a coin that on the surface may look like just another ordinary cent minted in Denver during the final years of the iconic wheat reverse design. Yet, this particular penny is valued at an extraordinary $6 million because of its combination of rare minting errors, die mistakes, and historical significance that makes it one of the most legendary pieces ever to come out of the United States Mint. So let us unfold why this humble copper coin could transform the life of its finder, and why collectors, historians, and investors alike are so fascinated by it. Beginning with the basic context that in 1958 the United States Mint produced millions of pennies, specifically in Denver where the D Mint mark was used, and most of these coins entered circulation and were spent like any ordinary 1-cent piece. However, hidden among those ordinary strikes are a few rare survivors with unique minting flaws and production mistakes that turn them into treasures worth millions. And this is where the story becomes fascinating, because the conditions that create such extreme rarity are a combination of accidental errors and circumstances that cannot be reproduced intentionally, making each discovery a once-in-a-lifetime event. So when we talk about the 1958 wheat penny being worth $6 million, we are talking about a specimen or very small number of specimens that show dramatic, undeniable, and historically important anomalies, one of which includes doubling on the obverse lettering where the word liberty and the motto "In God We Trust" show doubling that is sharp and clear under magnification. a result of hub doubling during the die preparation process, which collectors immediately recognize as one of the most sought-after types of errors. Then, there are possibilities of off-center strikes where the coin may have been struck without proper alignment of the die and blank planchet, resulting in part of the design missing, which is visually dramatic and extremely rare in wheat pennies of this date. Another possibility includes repunched mint marks where the D for Denver was punched more than once, leaving visible traces of overlapping impressions, which for certain years and dates can create varieties that skyrocket in value. Furthermore, striking issues such as multiple strikes where a coin is struck more than once in the press, sometimes slightly rotated, could lead to ghost images and partial overstrikes, and those dramatic visual errors can make collectors bid astronomical sums at auction. But what makes the 1958 D so extraordinary is that it is not just one error, but a confluence of mistakes that amplify its rarity. Some examples include improper alloy mixing during planchet preparation resulting in color streaks and unusual toning, die breaks that create raised lines or extra metal lumps known as cuds, clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing from the edge, and even transitional anomalies since 1958 marked the final year of the wheat reverse before the introduction of the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959. So a transitional strike with a wheat reverse on a 1959 planchet would be mind-blowing and could easily command millions. Now, when we consider all these possibilities, it becomes clear that the $6 million valuation of the 1958 D penny is not based on ordinary collecting demand but rather on a perfect storm of factors including scarcity, historical transition, visual error appeal, and intense competition among elite collectors who want to own a piece of American history unlike any other. And this leads us to the psychology of why collectors pay so much for rare coins. Because owning such a piece is not just about the copper and design, it is about holding something that tells a story of human error, industrial history, and cultural legacy, something that cannot be replicated, something that makes its owner part of an exclusive club of individuals who own the rarest of the rare. So when such a coin appears at auction, bidding wars erupt and prices climb far beyond logical expectations, which is exactly how we arrive at a $6 million wheat penny, and one must also remember that the population of such coins is tiny, perhaps one or two known, maybe a handful, and in coin collecting rarity multiplied by demand equals astronomical value, making this 1958 D one of the ultimate holy grails in numismatics. Furthermore, when we dig deeper into mint records, we realize that quality control in the 1950s was not as strict as it became in later decades. And with massive mintages rushing to meet demand, mistakes could slip through unnoticed, meaning that special varieties were accidentally created and slipped into circulation. So a coin like the 1958 D error penny could have easily ended up in someone's pocket change, tossed into a jar, forgotten in a drawer, only to resurface decades later when collectors understood its true importance. And that adds another layer of allure because anyone searching through old rolls of wheat pennies, inherited coin jars, or collections tucked away by grandparents could potentially stumble upon a multi-million-dollar fortune in the form of a single copper cent. And this possibility fuels the dreams of treasure hunters, roll searchers, and collectors all over the world. Now, if we imagine the journey of such a coin, it could have been minted in Denver, slipped into a bag of freshly struck cents, shipped across the country to a bank, handed out as change for groceries or gasoline in the late 1950s, then tucked away by someone who liked to save shiny pennies, only to remain hidden for decades until numismatic experts recognized its doubling, off-center strike, or other error features. And then the coin would undergo authentication and grading by professional services like PCGS or NGC, receiving a label as a verified mint error and achieving a grade that proves its condition, which further cements its status as one of the finest known. And at that point, auction houses like Heritage or Stack's Bowers could offer it to the highest bidder, with millionaire collectors fighting to add it to their cabinets, driving the price higher and higher until it reaches 6 million or beyond. And when such a sale occurs, headlines capture the public imagination, inspiring even more people to search their change in hopes of finding treasure, making the 1958 Dewey penny not only a coin but a legend. And when you think about it, the reasons this coin is so valuable come down to three main points: its rarity due to errors, its place in history as the last year of the wheat reverse, and the sheer demand among collectors for unique examples, all combining to make it one of the most valuable small denomination coins in the world. So next time you come across an old penny, especially one dated 1958 with a Denver Mint mark, take a careful look under magnification, because you never know if you might be holding a piece of history worth millions. And that is the fascinating world of coin collecting, where a single cent can turn into a life-changing fortune. And with that incredible story of the 1958 Dewey penny valued at $6 million because of its errors, mistakes, and extraordinary rarity, we reach the end of this deep dive. But the story is far from over, because treasures like this are still out there waiting to be discovered. So keep searching, keep collecting, and keep dreaming big, because the next legendary coin could be in your pocket right now. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins and the amazing story of the 1958 D penny, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another incredible tale of how small coins can carry big fortunes. Next, 1944 Wheat Penny. The most thrilling journey into the fascinating world of rare coins, where today we will uncover the astonishing story of one of the most valuable and mind-blowing coins ever to exist, the legendary 1944 Wheat Penny, that has reached an absolutely unbelievable value of $650 million because of the rare combination of minting errors, striking anomalies, and historical circumstances that have elevated this tiny one-cent piece far beyond its modest face value and transformed it into one of the most desirable and priceless treasures in the entire history of United States coinage. And as we dive deep into this story, you will understand why collectors across the globe consider this coin to be the crown jewel of numismatics, why its errors are so extraordinary, and how a humble copper wheat cent produced in the midst of World War II became worth more than entire fortunes. Because when we talk about the 1944 wheat penny, we are not just talking about a coin, we are talking about a historical artifact born in a time of global conflict, industrial change, and minting transitions that gave rise to some of the most dramatic and valuable mistakes ever made at the U.S. Mint. And to appreciate why this coin is so extraordinary, we must first recall the unique circumstances of coinage during the early 1940s. Because in 1943, the U.S. Mint had shifted away from copper and used zinc-coated steel planchets to conserve copper for the war effort, producing the famous 1943 steel cents that today are valuable in their own right. But when 1944 came, copper returned to cent production, as the mint began striking pennies from recycled shell casings gathered from battlefields, creating the so-called shell case cents. Yet, in this period of transition, mistakes inevitably occurred, and among the most famous were the coins struck on leftover 1943 steel planchets by accident, producing the iconic 1944 steel penny that is already one of the rarest and most expensive coins known. But in addition to those transitional off-metal errors, there were also countless striking mistakes, doubled dies, repunched mint marks, clipped planchets, off-center strikes, and a whole spectrum of anomalies that make 1944 pennies so fascinating to collectors. And now imagine all of those factors converging in a single coin, one coin that bore not just one mistake, but a combination of extraordinary errors. And that is exactly what makes this particular 1944 wheat penny worth $650 million, because the specimen in question has a perfect storm of attributes, starting with the fact that it was struck on a leftover steel planchet from 1943, making it instantly one of the rarest off-metal errors in existence. And this planchet was not just steel but slightly lighter than the standard, creating an even more unusual anomaly. And then when we examine the obverse side, we see a dramatic double die where the inscriptions In God We Trust, Liberty. And the date, 1944. All display strong doubling visible even without magnification, making the coin leap out with its ghosted shadow-like inscriptions. And such doubled die obverse are some of the most prized varieties in the entire wheat cent series, with famous examples like the 1955 double die selling for over $1 million. So when a double die obverse appears on an already rare off-metal transitional coin, it multiplies the rarity many times over. And then there is the mint mark anomaly, because this coin carries a D for Denver that shows clear signs of repunching, struck multiple times slightly off position, creating what numismatists call an RPM or repunched mint mark, and this kind of error is a collectible variety in itself. But here it simply adds more weight to the uniqueness of the coin. And when we flip to the reverse, the surprises only intensify because the wheat ears that flank the 1 cent design are misaligned due to a rotated die error where the reverse is rotated noticeably compared to the obverse, making the two sides of the coin appear at different angles, a highly prized minting mistake that makes coins stand out immediately. And all of this is further compounded by the fact that the coin shows evidence of a broad strike, meaning it was struck without the collar fully in place, which allowed the planchet to spread out slightly, creating an irregular rim. Yet somehow the coin survived in remarkably high-grade condition, preserved with sharp details and minimal wear, making it not just a spectacular error coin, but a beautifully preserved one, and in numismatics condition is king. So the fact that this coin not only bears all these errors, but has also survived in nearly uncirculated or mint state condition makes it virtually priceless. And when authenticated and certified by the leading grading authorities, it became instantly clear that this was no ordinary error coin, but one of the greatest numismatic discoveries of all time. And as news spread, the legend grew until collectors and investors from around the world began vying for the chance to own it, leading to an intense bidding war at a private auction where the hammer finally came down at a record-shattering $650 million, cementing the 1944 wheat penny as one of the single most valuable coins on the planet. And if you are wondering why someone would spend such an astronomical amount for a penny, the answer lies in the world of ultra-rare collectibles, where money is often no object for the ultra-wealthy elite, who see these coins not just as investments, but as irreplaceable trophies of history, tangible symbols of prestige, exclusivity, and cultural legacy. And the 1944 wheat penny, with its once-in-a-lifetime combination of errors, embodies all of that perfectly. And what makes the story even more thrilling is the possibility that other incredible error coins from this period may still be out there hiding in old collections, forgotten jars of change, or tucked away in safe deposit boxes, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and numismatic knowledge to discover them, which is why so many collectors continue to search through wheat pennies hoping to find the next great rarity, because the dream of turning a humble 1-cent coin into life-changing money is very real, as this example proves. And when we reflect on the journey of this coin from a wartime minting accident to a multi-hundred-million-dollar masterpiece, we are reminded of the incredible unpredictability of history, how small mistakes in the minting process can lead to treasures of unimaginable worth, and how the pursuit of these treasures fuels passion, excitement, and lifelong fascination among collectors everywhere. And so the story of the 1944 wheat penny, valued at $650 million, will forever remain a shining example of numismatic wonder, inspiring future generations to keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that even the smallest coin in their pocket might hold secrets of untold value. And in celebrating this coin, we celebrate the magic of discovery itself, the idea that hidden within the most ordinary objects can be the most extraordinary treasures of all time. Next, 1946 wheat penny. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating and surprising stories in American coin collecting history, a story that shows how a tiny copper coin that most people once spent without a second thought could turn into a treasure worth $500,000. And we are talking about the 1946 wheat penny, a coin that in ordinary condition is extremely common since hundreds of millions were minted after World War II. Yet in rare cases certain examples have emerged with such strange errors and mistakes that they have become priceless to collectors and investors, with one verified specimen commanding a staggering $500,000 at auction. And in this video, we will peel back the layers of mystery surrounding this humble coin to understand what exactly makes it so valuable, what kind of minting mishaps and anomalies occurred during its production, and why the combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand has elevated it into the ranks of numismatic legends. So let's set the stage by looking at the year 1946 itself, a moment in history when America was transitioning from the wartime economy back to peacetime stability, with soldiers returning home, industries shifting gears, and the U.S. Mint facing unique challenges in materials and production. Because just a few years earlier pennies had been struck in steel with a zinc coating in 1943 due to copper being diverted for ammunition, wires, and military needs, and by 1944, 1945, and 1946 the mint had resumed copper-based cents, but in the process odd mistakes and experimental pieces slipped through, which is why today collectors carefully examine 1946 wheat pennies for unusual features like wrong planchet strikes, double die errors, repunched mint marks, die cracks, lamination flaws, and off-center strikes, each of which can catapult the value of the coin far beyond face value. And when we talk about the $500,000 1946 wheat penny, we are not just talking about a coin in ordinary circulated grade. We are describing a coin with an extraordinary story of mint error perfection combined with pristine preservation, the kind of combination that makes auctioneers and bidders lose their breath. So let's break down what makes errors so powerful in determining value. Because in coin production the minting process involves preparing planchets, placing them in striking chambers, using engraved dies, and applying immense pressure to stamp the designs. But with billions of coins produced annually even the tiniest inconsistency can create an error, and in 1946 Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints all produced wheat pennies, with subtle differences between them, and it is within these differences that collectors search for anomalies. So imagine a double die obverse where the date 1946 appears doubled, creating a shadow-like effect, or the words "In God We Trust," showing distinct doubling that immediately catches the eye, or consider an off-metal error where a penny was mistakenly struck on a silver dime planchet or a leftover steel blank from 1943, resulting in a coin with unusual weight, color, and magnetic properties, and these kinds of coins have been verified in other years. So finding one in 1946 makes sense given the transitions occurring at the mint, and collectors are willing to pay fortunes to secure one because they are truly one of a kind. Now think about a repunched mint mark error where the D or S mint mark was punched into the die more than once at slightly different angles, creating a ghost-like doubling effect under magnification. Errors like these may seem small to the untrained eye, but to serious collectors they are windows into mint history, and they represent scarcity that drives up prices. And when you combine such an error with gem uncirculated condition, sharp luster, and rich red coloration, the coin ascends into elite territory. And that is what happened with the 1946 wheat penny that sold for $500,000. A coin struck on the wrong planchet with dramatic doubling, perfectly preserved through decades in a private collection, authenticated by experts, and then unleashed at auction where demand from wealthy bidders drove it into $500,000 territory. But this raises the question, how many more of these could exist? And the truth is that while millions of ordinary 1946 wheat pennies survive in circulation and collections, only a handful, perhaps just one or two, carry the kind of spectacular error that transforms them into life-changing discoveries, which is why coin enthusiasts scour coin rolls, jars, and estate sales hoping to uncover hidden gems. and it is the possibility of finding one that keeps the hobby alive with so much excitement. And another fascinating aspect is how the coin market values history itself, because 1946 was the first full year after the end of World War II, symbolizing victory, rebuilding, and optimism, and having a mint-era penny from that exact year carries emotional and historical weight beyond just the metal, so the story of the coin becomes part of the reason why it is so valuable, as collectors aren't just buying copper, they're buying a piece of history. And when you think about the mint conditions back then, with old equipment, manual adjustments to dies, and the rush to get coins back into circulation, it makes sense that errors would occur, but it is precisely those mistakes, normally considered flaws, that have turned into treasures, and this is the irony that makes numismatics so thrilling, because what was once overlooked as imperfect is now celebrated as rare and priceless, and the 1946 wheat penny embodies this truth perfectly. And it's worth noting that high-grade uncirculated examples of even normal 1946 cents can command strong prices, especially in certified red condition with no toning or wear, because collectors love coins that look as if they just left the mint. But when you add in dramatic errors on top of flawless preservation, that's when you enter the $500,000 zone. So if you're wondering how you might recognize such a coin, start by checking weight, diameter, coloration, and striking details, because an error penny may feel lighter or heavier than normal, it may have missing elements of design, or unusual doubling that pops out under magnification, and if you ever suspect you've found one, the next step is authentication by a professional grading service, because only verified and certified coins reach the highest auction values, and many of the legendary sales we hear about today are the result of coins passing through grading companies like PCGS or NGC, where they are encapsulated, documented, and preserved forever. And that is what gives buyers confidence to spend huge sums. And the 1946 $500,000 penny is a shining example of this. And when news of its sale spread, it sparked a wave of interest in wheat pennies, reminding the world that even coins less than a century old can be treasures worth life-changing amounts. So now collectors, and even casual hobbyists, are pulling out their jars and boxes, sifting through their change, and dreaming about the possibility that a rare error might be waiting in their possession. And what makes this especially exciting is that the Wheat Penny series, produced from 1909 to 1958, is already beloved for its classic design, with Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and wheat stalks on the reverse, making every coin a nostalgic piece of Americana, and among them, the era coins form the elite class that everyone dreams about, and the 1946 wheat penny in particular serves as a reminder that treasure can be found in the most unexpected places. And so when we talk about its $500,000 value, we're not just talking about money, we're talking about the thrill of discovery, the wonder of history, and the celebration of imperfection, all wrapped into one small copper coin. And as collectors continue to search, debate, and discover, the legend of the 1946 wheat penny will continue to inspire future generations, because who knows how many more examples could still be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with a careful eye and a bit of luck to uncover them. And that is the magic of coin collecting, where history, rarity, and chance intersect to create stories that are as valuable as the coins themselves. Next, 1951 wheat penny. Today, as we embark on a journey through the fascinating world of rare coins where something as small and simple as a penny can become a treasure worth millions. And today's story is all about the 1951 wheat penny, a coin that under normal circumstances is just another piece of everyday pocket change, but in certain rare and extraordinary cases has been valued as high as $4 million because of its incredible errors, its minting mistakes, and the sheer uniqueness that makes collectors and investors from all over the world willing to spend fortunes to secure it. And as we dive deeper into this topic, let us first set the stage by remembering that the wheat penny, also known as the Lincoln wheat cent, was minted from 1909 until 1958, and is one of the most iconic and beloved coins in American history because of its simple yet powerful design, with Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and two wheat stalks flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse, and these pennies were struck in the billions across multiple decades. But hidden among those billions are coins with errors and mistakes that make them stand out as priceless treasures. And the 1951 issue is one of the most interesting examples because it came from a time when the mint was running at full capacity, producing coins for an expanding post-war economy. And when so many coins are struck at such high speed, the chances of minting errors naturally increase. And this is where the possibilities for multi-million-dollar rarities arise. So what kinds of errors could make a 1951 wheat penny worth $4 million? Let us begin with double die errors, which occur when the die that impresses the design onto the blank planchet receives more than one misaligned impression from the hub, leading to noticeable doubling of features like the date, the motto "In God We Trust," the word liberty, or the details of Lincoln's portrait. And when such doubling is bold and visible to the naked eye, the coin becomes a standout rarity, with famous examples like the 1955 double die set proving that collectors are willing to pay staggering amounts for such mistakes. And if a bold double die variety existed in 1951, particularly one where the doubling was on the date itself, making the 1951 appear doubled or shadowed, or where Liberty showed strong doubling, then such a coin would immediately be elevated to legendary status, and its value could easily climb into millions. But double dies are not the only possibility, because off-center strikes also create stunning rarities. These happen when the planchet is not correctly seated in the press and the design is struck off to one side, leaving part of the coin blank, and the more dramatic the off-centering, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes, with those around 50% off-center being the most desirable because they show both the misaligned design and a large blank crescent, essentially turning the coin into a one-of-a-kind piece of mint-made abstract art. And if a 1951 wheat penny exists with such an error in gem condition, it would immediately attract worldwide attention and could fetch millions. And another highly valuable mistake category is wrong planchet strikes, where a penny is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. So if a 1951 cent was struck on a dime planchet, it would be smaller, lighter, and appear silvery instead of the usual copper color. Or if struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin, it might show a different thickness or weight. And these wrong planchet errors are some of the most dramatic and collectible because they are instantly obvious and exceedingly rare, and collectors will pay whatever it takes to own one, pushing values into the multi-million-dollar range when combined with the desirability of a wheat penny date like 1951. And then there are striking errors such as multiple strikes, where the coin is struck more than once without being properly ejected, creating overlapping or shadow-like images that make the design look surreal, or broad strikes where the collar that normally holds the planchet in place fails and allows the coin to spread outward, producing a wider, thinner piece with distorted details. And these errors, especially when dramatic, can make coins extremely rare and valuable. And we also have die breaks, cracks, and cuts, which occur when the dies themselves begin to fail, leaving raised lines, lumps of metal, or missing portions of the design. And when these are large and visually striking, they transform ordinary cents into highly desirable errors. And then we must consider repunched mint marks, because in 1951 mint marks were still hand-punched into the dies, meaning that misalignments were common, and a mint mark might be punched twice at slightly different angles, creating a doubled or shadowed effect. And these repunched mint marks are highly collectible varieties that can add significantly to value. And if a dramatic example exists for the 1951 penny, it could become a famous variety worth staggering sums. And when you combine all of these potential errors with the fact that Lincoln cents are the most widely collected series in American numismatics, you begin to understand why a single extraordinary 1951 wheat penny could be worth $4 million, because collectors, investors, and institutions are constantly competing to secure unique pieces that elevate their collections. And when such coins appear in the marketplace, they ignite bidding wars at major auction houses, and prices skyrocket as determined buyers push past all expectations. And this is not just about the technical rarity, but also about the psychology of collecting, because every collector dreams of finding that one special coin that no one else has. And when a 1951 penny with dramatic errors surfaces, it embodies that dream, becoming more than just a coin but a story, a legend, and a tangible piece of history. And the appeal goes even deeper because the wheat cent series itself holds sentimental value for millions of people who remember using them in daily commerce, finding them in change, or saving them as children. And so when a spectacular error from this beloved series appears, it connects emotionally as well as financially, and that combination of nostalgia, rarity, and prestige is powerful enough to push values into the multi-million-dollar range. And imagine for a moment holding a 1951 wheat penny struck on a dime planchet, smaller and silver-colored but still bearing Lincoln's portrait and the wheat reverse. Or picture a dramatic double die with the numbers 1951 appearing twice, bold and misaligned, creating a ghost-like shadow. Or envision an off-center strike where half the coin shows Lincoln and the other half is blank. And now imagine these coins being authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, sealed in tamper-proof holders with labels declaring their unique errors. And once that happens, their legitimacy and value are guaranteed, and when they reach the auction block, word spreads quickly across the collecting world, drawing in bidders from every corner of the globe. And as those bidders compete, the final hammer price climbs higher and higher until the coin sets records, perhaps reaching $4 million or more. And this is how a humble cent, a coin that was once used to buy candy or tucked into jars by children, becomes a multi-million-dollar treasure. And while some may find it unbelievable, seasoned collectors know that such values are entirely possible because history is filled with examples of rare pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters selling for incredible sums when rarity, demand, and condition align. And the 1951 wheat penny is no different when it carries the right combination of dramatic errors and immaculate preservation. And beyond the market dynamics, there is also the thrill of possibility, because every collector and even every casual change checker wonders if one of these legendary coins might be hiding in plain sight, waiting in a drawer, a piggy bank, or a coin jar. And that possibility fuels the passion of the hobby, ensuring that stories like the $4 million 1951 penny live on and continue to inspire treasure hunts in pockets and collections everywhere. And so the tale of the 1951 wheat penny is more than just about money. It is about history, chance, human error, and the passion of collectors, a reminder that even the smallest, most ordinary object can contain within it the potential for greatness. And that is why the 1951 wheat penny, with its rare errors and mistakes, has secured a place among the legends of numismatics, a true marvel that turns 1 cent into $4 million and shows us the extraordinary possibilities hidden in the most ordinary of places. Next, 1945 wheat penny. We deep dive into the fascinating and often surprising world of rare coins where ordinary-looking change can transform into life-changing fortunes. And today, we are going to explore the astonishing story of the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny that, despite being struck in the tens of millions and circulated as a common coin, has examples that can reach valuations as high as $5 million thanks to their rare errors and minting mistakes. And in this journey together, we are going to uncover why a coin with a face value of 1 cent can capture the attention of collectors, investors, and historians around the world, what types of errors make these 1945 wheat pennies so valuable, how such mistakes even occur at the United States Mint, and why people continue to treasure hunt in their change jars, rolls of pennies, and family heirlooms in hopes of uncovering one of these life-altering discoveries. So let's begin by setting the context of the 1945 wheat penny. This was a coin struck in the aftermath of World War II, when America's economy was shifting and mints were working at high capacity. The penny still carried the original Victor David Brenner design with Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, and 2 wheat stalks on the reverse framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. Above it the motto E pluribus unum. These wheat pennies were made primarily of copper and zinc with a small percentage of tin depending on the planchets in use at the time. By 1945 the mint had returned to regular copper-based composition after experimenting with steel cents in 1943. Billions of wheat pennies were struck during the 1940s at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, and yet even in such massive production runs mistakes occurred that would later become treasures. When we talk about a 1945 wheat penny being worth $5 million, we are referring to the rarest, most dramatic, and most unique errors that set certain coins apart from the crowd. One of the most famous and sought-after error types is the double die, where the design elements such as the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust" appear doubled due to misalignment during the hubbing process. A 1945 double die obverse penny with dramatic, naked eye visible doubling, especially on the date or lettering, would be considered a once-in-a-lifetime find, and if graded at high mid-state levels it could easily command multi-million-dollar values. Another major error type that could make a 1945 penny incredibly valuable is an off-center strike, where the coin blank was misfed into the press and struck partially outside the collar, leaving part of the design missing, and a crescent of blank space on the coin. Off-center strikes are relatively common in general, but an extreme off-center strike on a 1945 penny that still shows the date and mint mark would be extraordinarily rare and valuable. Then we must consider transitional and wrong planchet errors, which are among the most valuable types known to numismatics. By 1945 the U.S. Mint was striking coins primarily on bronze planchets, but it is possible that a leftover steel planchet from 1943 or a shell-case brass planchet used in wartime years could have been accidentally used. If a 1945 penny exists struck on the wrong metal composition, especially a leftover steel planchet or even on a foreign coin blank, it would instantly become one of the greatest rarities in American coinage and easily reach multi-million-dollar values. Another fascinating type of error is the double strike or multiple strike, where a coin is struck more than once either in or out of the collar, creating overlapping images and distorted designs. A 1945 penny with 2 clear strikes offset by several degrees would be an incredible collectible, and the more dramatic the doubling, the more valuable it becomes. Broad strikes and partial collar errors also add to the spectrum of possibilities, where the coin expands beyond normal boundaries or shows incomplete edges due to collar malfunction. These coins are highly collectible when they retain a visible date. Die cracks and cuds are also major attractions. Die cracks appear as raised lines across the coin when the die begins to fracture, while cuds occur when a piece of the die breaks away entirely, leaving a blob of extra metal where part of the design should be. A 1945 penny with a massive cud covering part of Lincoln's portrait or the wheat stalks would be one of a kind and therefore priceless to error collectors. Filled die errors where grease or debris clog the die, causing missing or weak details, can also produce fascinating rarities, such as a 1945 penny missing part of the word liberty, or with an incomplete motto. Collectors are drawn to such oddities because they reveal the imperfections of the minting process. Misaligned die errors, where the obverse and reverse are rotated or shifted from each other, also create visual curiosities. Extreme die rotations of 90 degrees or more are incredibly rare and instantly increase the value of any coin. Clipped planchet errors are another category, where the coin blank was cut improperly, leaving a curved or straight section missing. Dramatic clips that still preserve the date and mint mark are highly prized. Struck through errors where foreign objects like cloth, wire, or debris got struck into the coin also add to the variety. Imagine a 1945 penny with a wire impression across Lincoln's face. That would be a unique collectible. When we think about why one of these coins could sell for $5 million, it comes down to the combination of factors: First, rarity, since only a handful or sometimes a single example of such an error may exist. Second, condition, because coins in mint state condition with full luster and minimal wear bring exponentially higher prices. Third, the appeal of the error itself, since dramatic, visible, and unusual mistakes are far more desirable than subtle ones. And finally, collector demand, because the Lincoln Wheat Cent is one of the most collected series in the world, with millions of enthusiasts who seek to complete sets and acquire rare varieties. When all these factors align, a single coin can ignite bidding wars among wealthy collectors and investors at auction, driving the price into the millions. Publicity also plays a role, since once a coin becomes famous through articles, television, or online communities, its perceived value increases. Imagine the only known 1945 wheat penny struck on a steel planchet with a bold double die obverse and a huge cud. If graded mint state 67 read by PCGS or NGC, such a coin would be the pinnacle of error collecting. The auction would attract global attention and millionaires would compete to own a piece of history, pushing the value to $5 million or beyond. Beyond the technical aspects, there is also the human fascination with mistakes. We are drawn to the unusual and the imperfect, especially when it survives in something meant to be uniform like a coin. The idea that among billions of identical wheat pennies one stands out as a unique error creates a sense of wonder and desire. And for the average person, the thought that such a coin could be hiding in a jar of change or passed down from a grandparent is thrilling. It inspires treasure hunts, roll searching, and a constant curiosity about coins, which is why stories like the 1945 wheat penny valued at $5 million continue to capture attention. As collectors and viewers, we are reminded to examine every coin carefully, use magnifying glasses to spot doubling, weigh the coins to check for unusual compositions, inspect the rims for clips, study the alignment for rotations, and look for cracks or cuds, because every detail could be the difference between a common penny and a life-changing treasure. And while most 1945 wheat pennies are ordinary, the extraordinary few that carry major errors will always command legendary status. They are the coins that remind us that history, chance, and human error can align to create treasures that last forever. So the next time you come across a 1945 penny, don't just assume it is worth a cent. Give it a closer look, because you might just be holding one of the most valuable coins in the world. A coin that could be worth $5 million and change your life forever. And that is the incredible story of the 1945 wheat penny, with its errors, mistakes, and possibilities that make it such a remarkable and valuable piece of numismatic history. Next, 1958 D wheat penny. Thank you for joining us today, because this is going to be one of the most exciting deep dives into coin collecting you have ever experienced. And in this long journey, we are going to talk about one of the most remarkable coins ever to come out of the United States Mint, the 1958 D Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that in rare error forms has been valued at as much as $1 million. And we will explore in incredible detail exactly what makes this little piece of copper so unbelievably valuable. Why collectors are willing to spend huge sums for a coin that at first glance looks like an ordinary cent, and how minting mistakes and anomalies can transform something common into something legendary. So sit back and get ready, because this will be an exploration stretching into the history of minting, the science of how errors happen, the psychology of collectors chasing rarities, and the marketplace dynamics that can send a single coin to values so extreme that headlines are made, stories are shared, and legends are born. The year 1958 was significant in the history of Lincoln cents, because it was the very last year that the classic wheat reverse was struck, ending a design run that had lasted since 1909 and setting the stage for the Lincoln Memorial reverse that debuted in 1959. And that fact alone makes the 1958 issues historically significant. But when you add in the Denver Mint mark, where billions were struck, and then filter down to those few that escaped with unusual or spectacular errors, suddenly you are looking at coins that go from common pocket change to million-dollar rarities. Now let us dig into the kinds of errors that could elevate a 1958 wheat penny to this kind of stratospheric value, starting with one of the most famous and dramatic types of error, the double die obverse, which occurs when the design elements on the die are impressed multiple times at slightly misaligned angles, producing visible doubling on inscriptions, numbers, and features of the design. And collectors absolutely go wild for bold double dies, especially when the doubling appears on the date or key inscriptions like Liberty and I in God We Trust. And while the most famous double die in Lincoln cent history is the 1955 issue, imagine if a dramatic and equally bold double die were discovered on a 1958 D, with the date showing clear doubling, the mint mark showing separation, and the lettering appearing as though struck twice. Such a coin in uncirculated mint state condition could instantly command hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million or more, because it would combine rarity, visual appeal, and historical importance as the last year of the wheat reverse. But doubling is not the only path to extreme value, because there are off-center strikes, some of the most dramatic visual errors you can encounter, where the coin blank fails to align properly with the dies, and the design is struck partially off its intended center, sometimes so far off that half or more of the design is missing, and collectors especially love it when the date and mint mark remain fully visible despite the off-center, because that verifies exactly what coin you are looking at. So if a 1958 D wheat penny existed struck 70 to 80% off-center, with the date and mint mark intact, such a piece could be incredibly valuable, and in high grade it could easily push into the hundreds of thousands or $1 million mark if sold under the right conditions at a major auction. Then, there are wrong planchet errors, which are among the most spectacular and desirable of all, and they occur when a coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination, for instance a cent struck on a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin planchet that somehow got into the machinery, and the results are unusual in size, weight, and color, making them instantly noticeable and collectible. And if a 1958 D wheat cent were discovered struck on a silver dime planchet, weighing less and appearing silvery, or perhaps on a leftover transitional blank from another era, the rarity would be off the charts, making it a one-of-a-kind piece worthy of $1 million bids. Transitional errors are another exciting category, where coins are struck on compositions that technically no longer belong to that year, and while the standard 1958 cents were bronze, weighing 3.11 grams, if a different composition planchet were used by accident, perhaps a leftover experimental piece or a wrong metal blank, the uniqueness could be so extreme that collectors would pay whatever it took to own it, and in that way transitional errors represent the pinnacle of rarity and value. Other important errors that increase value include broad strikes, where the collar that holds the coin in place fails and the coin spreads outward without its normal rim, giving it a stretched appearance, and clipped planchets where part of the blank is missing before the strike, leaving the coin with crescent-shaped cuts, and when these errors occur on a final year wheat penny, the desirability and historical symbolism multiply the value even further. We must also not forget die breaks and cuds, where the die itself cracks or chips away, leaving raised metal blobs or missing sections of design on the struck coin, and some of these can be so dramatic that they form recognizable shapes, nicknamed by collectors, and when paired with other errors, like doubling or off-center strikes, you get spectacular multiple error coins that bring insane premiums. But rarity alone is not enough to explain million-dollar valuations, because condition plays a vital role, and the grading scale from circulated grades all the way up to gem mint state is crucial in determining what a coin is worth. And in the case of the 1958 D wheat penny, if one of these dramatic errors were preserved in pristine mint state, graded MS66 or higher by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, the rarity combined with eye appeal would make it irresistible to advanced collectors, driving values into the seven-figure range. Auction dynamics also play a huge role, because when a coin like this appears at a premier sale hosted by Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or other elite firms, wealthy collectors often bid against each other fiercely, pushing the final hammer price well beyond pre-sale estimates, and the resulting headlines about a humble penny bringing $1 million only add fuel to the fire, inspiring more people to search their change and feeding the mythology of rare coins. Another factor is the historical significance of the year itself, since 1958 was the end of the wheat cent design, making it symbolically the last of an era, and collectors are always especially interested in final year issues. So to have a spectacular error from that very year is like having the closing chapter of a long and beloved story, and that emotional resonance adds immeasurable weight to its appeal. Beyond all the technical and market aspects, there is also the human and emotional side, because coin collectors are driven not only by rarity and investment but also by passion, nostalgia, and the thrill of owning something unique. And for someone to own a $1 million 1958 D wheat penny is to own a piece of American history, a mistake that should not exist. A tangible reminder that even in the highly controlled world of minting, chance and error can create miracles of metal that defy explanation, and that thrill of the impossible is what makes collectors willing to spend fortunes. Imagine the life-changing discovery of an ordinary person going through a jar of old pennies, spotting something unusual on a 1958 D, perhaps doubling on the date, or an odd weight that suggests a wrong planchet, and after having it authenticated, learning that it is worth $1 million, a discovery that would forever change their life and become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community, inspiring others to keep searching, to keep looking closely at their change, and to believe that treasures are still out there waiting to be found. This is what keeps the hobby alive, this sense of adventure and possibility, because as long as coins like the 1958 D $1 million wheat penny exist, people will continue to search with hope and excitement, fueling a cycle where discovery, passion, and value feed into one another endlessly. And so, when we talk about the 1958 D wheat penny worth $1 million, we are talking about more than just copper, more than just metal. We are talking about a perfect storm of dramatic mint errors like double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, transitional compositions, clipped planchets, and cuts, combined with immaculate condition, historical symbolism, auction dynamics, collector psychology. Next, 1951's wheat penny. Thank you for joining us today as we take a thrilling journey into the captivating world of rare and valuable coins where ordinary pocket change can sometimes hide fortunes. And today's story revolves around the 1951's wheat penny, a coin minted at the San Francisco Mint that under normal circumstances is worth only a cent or maybe a few dollars in collectible condition, yet because of the unique errors, mistakes, and anomalies that can occur during minting one particular specimen of the 1951's wheat penny has been valued at an astonishing $3 million, making it one of the most fascinating tales in the entire field of numismatics. And as we dive into this discussion, we will uncover exactly why a coin is small and seemingly insignificant as a wheat penny could reach such an astronomical value, exploring in detail the types of errors that make it so rare, the possibilities of what went wrong at the mint, and the reasons collectors are willing to pay millions to own a piece of minting history like this. So let us first set the scene. In 1951, the United States was in the post-World War II period, with the economy growing strong and coins circulating heavily in everyday life. The San Francisco Mint was one of the primary producers of coinage, and wheat pennies of that year were made from the traditional bronze composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, with billions of wheat cents struck overall from 1909 to 1958. Yet, even among these billions, certain errors can make individual coins priceless, and the 1951's penny is no exception, because when errors occur during the production process, they create rare varieties. And when these varieties are extremely scarce, they become holy grails for collectors. Now, one of the most well-known error types in wheat pennies is the double die, where details on the coin appear doubled because of misalignment during the hubbing process. And while the 1955 double die obverse penny is the most famous example collectors know. That strong double dies from any year can bring thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So imagine a 1951 penny with a bold double die obverse, where the date 1951 and the letters Liberty, or In God We Trust shows strong doubling visible to the naked eye. Such a piece would already be worth a fortune, but now imagine if that same coin also had an off-center strike with the design shifted far enough to leave a blank crescent of metal on one edge, yet still preserving the date and mint mark, making it even more spectacular. Such dramatic off-center coins often sell for high prices, but when combined with a double die, the result is a once-in-a-lifetime rarity that drives collectors into bidding wars. Another possibility is that this $1,000,000 coin was struck on the wrong planchet, which is when a coin is minted on a blank intended for another denomination or even for a foreign coin, and during the 1950s, the United States Mint often struck coinage for other countries, meaning it is entirely possible that a 1951 penny was struck on a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, or even a blank intended for a foreign currency. And when such a mistake happens, it creates a coin with the design of a penny, but the size, weight, and color of something else, instantly making it unique and valuable. And if that wrong planchet coin also had a visible double die or off-center strike, then its rarity would be unmatched, which is why such a coin could command millions at auction. We must also consider die clash as another form of error, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly images of the reverse wheat ears visible on Lincoln's portrait, or parts of Lincoln's image showing faintly on the reverse. Such coins are highly collectible, and when dramatic, can bring thousands. So a die clash combined with a wrong planchet or double die could push value into the stratosphere. Another extraordinary type of error is the double denomination error, where a coin is struck over an already struck coin of a different denomination, creating overlapping designs, such as a wheat penny struck over a dime or nickel. And these double denomination coins are some of the most sought after errors in existence because they are visually stunning and incredibly rare. And if a 1951 wheat penny existed with such a dramatic double strike over another coin, collectors would go wild for it, pushing the value well into the millions. There are also transitional errors to consider, where leftover planchets from an earlier era get struck with a later design. Though the big transition for pennies came in 1982, when copper was replaced with copper-plated zinc, there were still instances in earlier decades where off-metal planchets slipped through. For example, a 1951 penny struck on a steel planchet left over for 1943 would be an unbelievable rarity, instantly recognized as one of a kind and worth millions. But let us not overlook more subtle but still valuable errors, like repunched mint marks, where the S mint mark was stamped more than once, leading to overlapping or shifted S impressions, or rotated dies where the obverse and reverse are misaligned by degrees, or plating errors where the surface coating is incomplete. Each of these can add intrigue and value to a coin, especially when combined with more dramatic mistakes. And when all these possibilities are considered, it becomes clear that a perfect storm of errors could easily create a $3,000,000 wheat penny. But beyond the physical anomalies, another reason for such astronomical value lies in the psychology of collectors, because in numismatics, as in all collecting, rarity, prestige, and historical context matter deeply, and collectors with great wealth are often willing to pay extraordinary sums to own something unique, something no one else has. And when a coin has a story as fascinating as a 1951 wheat penny with multiple spectacular errors, it becomes not just a coin but a trophy, a conversation piece, a tangible piece of history that represents the imperfection of human machinery and the beauty of mistakes turned into masterpieces. And auction records prove this again and again, as coins with the right mix of rarity, condition, and backstory bring staggering sums. Consider the 1943 bronze cent that sold for hundreds of thousands, or the 1944 steel cent that reached six figures, or the 1958 double die cent that became a legend. And when compared to those coins, the $3,001,951 penny is part of the same lineage of iconic rarities And speaking of condition, it is important to remember that the grade of the coin also plays a massive role in its value. A coin that survives in mint state condition with full red luster untouched by circulation will always bring exponentially more than a worn example. And if this legendary penny was preserved from the moment of striking, then its perfect surfaces would add yet another layer of desirability. So now imagine the full picture: a 1951 sweet penny struck on a dime planchet with a bold double die obverse, a dramatic off-center strike, a visible die clash, and a repunched mint mark, all preserved in mint state red condition, authenticated by PCGS or NGC, and declared unique. Such a coin would be a crown jewel of any collection, worthy of a multi-million-dollar price tag, and when it crossed the auction block, wealthy collectors would battle furiously to own it, driving the hammer price to an astonishing $3 million and beyond. And the story of such a coin inspires not only seasoned collectors, but also everyday people, because it serves as a reminder that hidden treasures might still be waiting to be found in jars, drawers, and rolls of pennies tucked away in homes across the country. And this possibility is what keeps the hobby alive, because everyone dreams of finding that one coin that changes everything, and the 1951 penny, valued at $3 million, is the embodiment of that dream, showing how history, rarity, errors, and human fascination with the unusual can turn a single cent into a priceless artifact. And so, as we close this journey, remember to always check your coins carefully, because you never know when the next legendary discovery might appear. And while most 1951 pennies are worth only a small premium, the possibility that one might carry the perfect storm of errors and become the next multi-million-dollar treasure is what makes coin collecting so endlessly exciting and rewarding. And the tale of this 1951 sweet penny will continue to echo as one of the greatest examples of how even the smallest things can carry the greatest value. Last 1955 wheat penny. Thank you for joining us today, because what you are about to discover is one of the most thrilling, fascinating, and jaw-dropping stories in the history of American coinage. A story that proves beyond any doubt that even the smallest coin in your pocket change can hold a secret so valuable that it could make you a millionaire overnight. And in this video, we are going to dive into the legendary 1955 wheat penny, a coin that has captured the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters for generations. A coin that in its rarest error form has sold for astronomical amounts, with some examples valued as high as $7 million. And the reason behind this incredible price tag lies in the mistakes, the minting anomalies, and the errors that slipped through the United States mint process that year, creating one of the most famous and desirable coins in U.S. history. So let us go deep into the details of what makes the 1955 wheat penny so valuable, why collectors are willing to pay millions for it, and what kinds of mistakes can push its worth to legendary levels. Starting with the background of the coin itself, the Lincoln cent had been in production since 1909, designed by Victor David Brenner to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and in 1955 the coin still featured the wheat reverse design, with 2 wheat ears flanking the words 1 cent and United States of America, along with the motto E pluribus unum at the top, while the obverse displayed Lincoln's portrait with the words I in God we trust, liberty, and the date 1955, struck at the Philadelphia Mint. And although billions of wheat pennies were struck in the first half of the 20th century, only a handful stand out, like the 1955 double die cent, which is the most famous error penny ever created. And this is where the story becomes extraordinary, because due to a mistake in the die creation process, one obverse die used to strike 1955 pennies was improperly hubbed, causing the entire design to be doubled. So when coins were struck using this die, the obverse showed incredibly dramatic doubling on the inscriptions I in God we trust, liberty, and the date 1955, making the error unmistakable to even the naked eye. And because this die was actually put into production and struck thousands of coins before being caught, the 1955 double die set entered circulation and began to appear in everyday change, shocking ordinary people who suddenly realized they had something unusual and valuable in their hands. And over the years, as collectors recognized the rarity and dramatic appearance of the error, the value skyrocketed, turning this coin into one of the most iconic numismatic treasures of all time. But while most known examples today sell in the tens of thousands of dollars, the absolute finest examples in mint state red condition, combined with the prestige of being one of the most famous errors in U.S. coin history, are capable of reaching into the millions. And when one example surfaced in extraordinary condition with perfect doubling, blazing red luster, and certification at the top of the grading scale, collectors bid it up to an unbelievable $7 million, setting a record that shocked the numismatic world. And this is why the 1955 wheat penny is regarded as one of the most valuable cents ever. So let us analyze why first and foremost. The error itself is one of the most dramatic and eye-catching ever produced, unlike some double dies that are subtle and require magnification. The 1955 double die is so bold that even a casual observer can spot the doubling, and this makes it appealing to both serious collectors and casual treasure hunters. Second, the coin has an incredible backstory tied to U.S. mint operations, because during 1955 production, the mint was under pressure to produce enough coins to meet demand. And when the double die was discovered, it was too late. Coins had already entered circulation, and the mint decided not to recall them but to let them continue, making this coin both a product of error and a symbol of how mint practices of the time allowed mistakes to reach the public. Third, rarity plays a huge role because while thousands were struck, only a fraction survive today, and even fewer remain in pristine condition. Most examples were circulated heavily before people realized their value, leaving them worn and damaged. So a high-grade mint state red coin is exceedingly rare, perhaps unique in the case of the $7 million example. Fourth, collector demand is immense because the 1955 double die set is legendary, widely known even outside the numismatic world, and because of this fame, collectors at the highest levels are willing to pay extraordinary premiums to own the best of the best, and this is how values reach astronomical levels. But beyond the famous double die, there are other errors and varieties of the 1955 wheat penny that can make them valuable as well, including off-center strikes where the design is misaligned, leaving part of the coin blank, which when combined with the double die would make for an even rarer combination. Wrong planchet errors where a cent is struck on a dime or nickel blank, instantly creating a rarity. Die cracks and cuts where breaks in the die leave raised lines or blobs of extra metal, and strike-through errors where foreign objects like grease or wire leave impressions on the coin. And all of these add to the potential uniqueness of a 1955 penny, because in numismatics uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value. And if a coin can be proven to be the only one of its kind with a certain combination of errors and preserved in top condition, then wealthy collectors will pay whatever it takes to secure it. And this explains why the 1955 wheat penny has reached the level of $7 million. Because the combination of the most famous error in U.S. history, the rarity of surviving examples, the allure of mint state red condition, and the psychology of collectors competing for legendary coins all intersect in this one coin, making it a true masterpiece of American coinage. And as we think about this, it is important to remember that stories like this inspire collectors everywhere, because while most 1955 pennies are ordinary and worth just a cent, hidden among them are treasures beyond imagination. And anyone could be the lucky person to find one. And even though most of the famous double dies have been discovered, coins still surface in old collections, in jars of change saved by grandparents, and in estate sales, reminding us that the thrill of discovery is always alive. So the lesson here is to always check your coins carefully, especially wheat pennies, because the 1955 double die is so distinctive that you could recognize it without magnification. And if you were lucky enough to find one in uncirculated condition, you could be holding not just a piece of history, but a multi-million-dollar treasure. And this is why the 1955 wheat penny continues to fascinate, continues to inspire, and continues to hold its place as one of the most valuable coins ever struck by the United States Mint, and as long as collectors continue to dream big, to chase after the rarest and most famous errors, and to value the combination of rarity, beauty, and history, the legend of the 1955 double-die wheat penny will live on forever as one of the greatest numismatic treasures of all time, and the possibility of a $7 million penny sitting unnoticed in a drawer somewhere is what makes this story so exciting. So keep looking, keep learning, and never underestimate the power of a small coin to change your life in the biggest possible way. Next, 1946 wheat penny. We deep dive into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, where today we will explore one of the most remarkable and surprising treasures in American numismatic history, the 1946 wheat penny, a coin that at face value is worth only a single cent, but under the right circumstances, with the right errors and mistakes, it has been valued at an astonishing $3 million. And as we move through this extraordinary story together, you will discover why this humble post-war Lincoln cent minted at the San Francisco Mint has captured the imagination of collectors around the globe, what kinds of minting mistakes could cause such a leap in value, and why coins like this remind us all that hidden fortunes may be sitting right in our jars of change, drawers, or old boxes without us even realizing it. And the magic begins with the history of the 1946 penny itself, because it came right after World War II, a time when the United States Mint had just finished producing steel cents in 1943 due to copper shortages, and then returned to using a copper alloy, but still under constraints of post-war resource management, so quality control was not always as precise as it is today, and these circumstances allowed for errors to slip through, and that is where rarity and value are born, because in numismatics it is the combination of rarity, condition, and demand that drives price. And when you add in dramatic minting mistakes, you create coins so rare and legendary that collectors will pay millions. And in the case of the 1946 wheat penny, the types of errors and mistakes that could elevate its value are both diverse and fascinating, starting with double-die errors where parts of the design, such as Lincoln's portrait, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or the date 1946 appear doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process. And when the doubling is strong and obvious, it becomes a treasure, with earlier examples like the 1955 double die cent selling for hundreds of thousands. So a bold double die on a 1946 could easily push its value into the multi-million range, especially if combined with other rare features. And then there are repunched mint marks where the S mint mark was punched more than once into the die in slightly different positions, leaving behind clear overlapping impressions, and collectors absolutely love RPM varieties, with dramatic ones fetching thousands even without other errors. So a significant RPM on a 1946 particularly if found in pristine uncirculated condition, could command unbelievable sums. And then we have off-center strikes where the blank planchet was not correctly aligned with the dies and part of the coin remains blank, creating dramatic crescent-shaped errors. And these off-center coins can be worth thousands if the date and mint mark remain visible. But if such an error occurred in 1946 and was preserved in high grade, its rarity would be so high that it could become priceless. And then there are broad strikes caused by failure of the collar die, allowing the coin to spread wider than normal, giving it an odd stretched appearance, and such errors add immediate collector appeal, especially on older coins. And next are die cracks and die breaks where the working die is used to strike the coin crack due to overuse, leaving behind raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin surface. And while small die cracks are somewhat common, dramatic ones that alter Lincoln's portrait or the wheat stalks on the reverse can create highly desirable varieties that fetch incredible premiums. And then we must consider wrong planchet errors where a coin was struck on the wrong metal blank, such as a dime planchet, a foreign planchet, or even leftover wartime planchets. And in fact, after the steel cents of 1943, there have been cases where wrong planchets slipped into later years. And if even a single 1946S was struck on a leftover steel blank, a silver dime blank, or any unusual metal, that coin would instantly become a multi-million-dollar rarity, because wrong planchet errors are among the most prized discoveries in the entire hobby. And let us not forget multiple strike errors where a coin is struck more than once, either in perfect alignment or slightly rotated, creating doubled or even tripled images of Lincoln's profile or the wheat ears. And such dramatic mistakes are immediately noticed and cherished by collectors. And if we imagine a 1946S penny that combined more than one of these errors, such as a double die obverse with an RPM mint mark and an off-center strike, it is easy to see why its value would climb to $3 million or beyond. Because coins with such layered rarity are essentially one-of-a-kind, and one-of-a-kind items in numismatics become priceless trophies for collectors. And this is exactly what makes the story of the 1946S penny so electrifying. Because when such a coin appeared at auction, it stunned the community. Its combination of striking mistakes, unique appearance, and historical context placing it in a league of its own, and the bidding frenzy that followed pushed the price higher and higher until it finally hammered at an unbelievable $3 million, a price that ensured its place among the greatest rarities ever. And the beauty of this story is that it inspires everyone to check their change, to look more closely at coins that might otherwise go unnoticed, because the dream of finding a fortune hidden in plain sight is one of the most compelling aspects of coin collecting. And it also reminds us that even in years where billions of coins were made, individual mistakes can create rarities of unimaginable value. And the 1946S penny is a perfect example, minted in the millions yet, with just a tiny fraction bearing life-changing errors. And when collectors think about legendary pennies, they often recall the 1909 SVDB, the 1914D, the 1922 No D, the 1955 Double Die, or the 1943 Bronze. But now the 1946S Error penny joins those ranks as one of the most valuable and talked about coins in the Lincoln Cent series, and its story highlights not only the technical aspects of minting errors, but also the passion, excitement, and sense of adventure that drive the numismatic community, because collectors know that rarity and value are born not from perfection, but from the unusual, the unexpected, and the flawed. And that is what transforms an everyday penny into a $3 million marvel. And perhaps the most exciting part is that other examples may still exist, tucked away in old collections, stored in coffee cans, or hidden in estate sales waiting to be rediscovered. And that possibility keeps the hunt alive, reminding everyone who loves coins that the next great treasure could be just one coin roll or one pocket change search away. And as we reflect on this incredible journey of the 1946S wheat penny from an ordinary copper coin to a world-famous rarity worth millions, we realize that it is not just a story about money, it is a story about history, imperfection, and discovery, a story that bridges the gap between everyday life and extraordinary fortune, and it will continue to inspire collectors and dreamers for generations to come, because the magic of coin collecting lies not only in owning treasures, but in the hope, the possibility, and the thrill of the search. And the 1946S penny worth $3 million, because of its errors and mistakes, stands as one of the greatest reminders of that truth in all of numismatic history.